it's hard because, when you lose part of your identity or that a part of your identity has to come to a close, it is still your identity, but it's not the physical, you're not manifesting it physically on a day-to-day basis. That's a personal thing. So there's not really much as a wife you can do in a lot of the situations. You can't go inside someone's brain and build up their identity for them, right? Like it's kind of like it's a journey, right? Like it's your own personal, you can be there, you can be supportive, I don't know, it's such a personal thing. I think like for me, it was just, we had our daughter, we took on a project. That was basically
Right.
me
Kept yourself
being
busy.
support. That was me being supportive. We were like looking at ourselves like, what's our life about, right? So I thought, the way I can be supportive of him is encouraging him to do something. He's very, very I don't know how to describe him besides to say Ryan has a deep grind, an absolute stick to itiveness. You know what I mean? Like you want to get something done, you ask Ryan Miller. Like it's gonna get done. Like
Right.
he's that
He
person.
works
Like
hard.
so
Yeah.
he works hard. He's a hard worker. So it's like I was like, he needs a project.
You're listening to Breaking the Ice podcast, a podcast that I created in 2020 to connect women within the hockey world. My name's Devin Dodaro, my husband's Charlie Dodaro, and we've played literally all over the world. We have 2 kids, 2 dogs, and let's just say hockey has taken my world by storm. What I've learned is that this community and these experiences are very specific, and you should not have to go through this alone. Through this podcast, I share the tools, resources, do's, don'ts, and what's helped me along the way while continuing to learn from each and every one of you. So lace them up and tune in for episodes twice a month. And make sure to follow the page on Instagram at Breaking the Ice Pod. Hello, and welcome back to the podcast. I'm so happy you're here today for this special episode with Noureen DeWulf. She is married to retired now professional hockey player Ryan Miller, who played in the NHL for several years. He was inducted into the Hall of Fame. He played in the Olympics, and Noureen is a actress. You might recognize her from the show Good Girls or Anger Management, and one of my faves, Ghost of Girlfriends Past. She is hilarious, and I was so excited to finally sit down with her because she was a very highly requested guest from a lot of people over the years, and we had a great conversation. In this episode, we covered a lot of ground. We talked about how her and Ryan met, where they're at now, what they've been doing. We chatted about what we have to sacrifice as hockey wives, retirement, how they got through that phase of life when, as we all know, it just is kind of their identity. And so moving into that next chapter can be tough. So we chatted about what that looked like for them and so many other things. So this is a long one, and I'm going to keep this intro short and sweet. But thank you for being here. If you have a second and you enjoyed this episode, I would love if you would go rate and review Breaking the Ice on Apple Podcast. Have a great rest of your week.
What time is it over there?
It is 5 p.m. I'm like, we probably have like 2 mugs. Mine is wine. And yours is probably
Coffee.
cheers.
Cheers.
I'm super excited to have you on the podcast. You've actually been a highly suggested, asked for guest over like the past few years that I've had the podcast going on. And I'm just
Oh,
super
wow.
excited to have you here and just
That's
dive into
cool.
all the things.
Thank you. That's awesome.
Yes. So I always start off the podcast really just kind of asking for like the Cliff Notes version of who you are, how you met your husband, and like a little bit into your hockey life.
So, yeah, I met Ryan. I was shooting a TV show called Man Eater, which in retrospect is hilarious. That's the show I met him on. And so I was shooting that show in Scottsdale, Arizona, and it was a mini series. So there was like we were living out there for 4 months. There was, I think they broke it into 2 parts, but it was a long shoot, like a movie. And the director of the series was Tim Busfield, which he is quite a prolific director and a really well-known actor to a certain generation. He was Poindexter in Revenge of the Nerds. And he asked me if I was single, and I was like, yes, Tim, why? And he said, my friend's son is coming through town tonight. He plays hockey. He's a professional hockey player, and I told him, about you, and I felt like he would, I'd like to set you guys up. He's going to come by to cast dinner, and we were at Nobu on top of the W Hotel in Scottsdale. I think it was Nobu. It was one of the fancy sushi places, and yeah, Ryan walked in and our eyes met, and the rest was history. I really think at that moment, I knew that we would get married. And I had one thought to myself, and it was, it's too soon to meet this guy because I was kind of really enjoying being independent and single, and I was just having a lot of fun. Um, I had been in a really long-term relationship prior to meeting Ryan, and I'd only been single for a year. So I was thriving. And, but I met Ryan, and I don't know, I just got that feeling. And sometimes people will say, you get those gut feelings. I'm really somebody who operates off of my gut and my feelings a lot.
Me too.
And when I met him, I just knew that we would be married. And it was funny because I think I'm one of the only wives who's ever been to a rookie party. And the reason why I went to rookie parties because that night was their rookie party. So
Oh,
he and his buddy, Paul Gostad, who were at our cast dinner, were like, hey, come with us to a party. And I was like, no, I'm not going to go with these two professional athletes to wherever they want to take me. I was like, I was like, these are big guys. Like, I'm a tiny person. Like, I'm a tiny girl. And I was like, I'm not going to go with them. And my producer, one of the producers of our show, was like, well, I'll go with you. And then Tim was like, I'll go with you. So I had no idea where we were going, but they were like, our teammates are going to a club. And I was like, okay, but we have rehearsal in the morning. I was such a dork. And Tim was like, don't worry about it. It's just rehearsal. So I said, okay. So we went with them to their, and it ended up being their rookie party. But meanwhile, for like maybe 2 years, I didn't know that it was a rookie party. And then finally somebody was like, weren't you at their rookie party? And I was like, oh my God, I was at a rookie party. That's so cool.
which
I'm
is
the only one.
which is sorry to interrupt you, but that's probably so funny now looking back and like knowing what a rookie party is and just knowing that you were like a part of it and then you guys wound up like getting married and having kids and like the whole shebang and started off at a rookie party.
I know. I think it's ironic. It's ridiculous. And he told his goalie partner at the time was Patty William, I think, and he told him, "I'm going to marry this girl." So it's funny because we both had that feeling about each other when we saw each other, um, and yeah, that's how
Oh,
we met.
I
Hmm.
love
Yeah.
that. Okay, so were you like a hockey fan before? Because like I had never been to a hockey game in my life when I met my husband. And then it's like, okay, we're doing this. This is like a whole lifestyle that I had no idea about.
Yeah, no, same as you. I didn't know anything about hockey. Actually, just Googled him quick right when he was on his way and saw, that he was playing for Buffalo. Like I was trying to quickly learn about like what like I didn't even really know he was a goalie. I didn't know anything. I wasn't really into sports. Now, of course, I've got a 9-year-old son who lives and breathes for sports, all sports, which is crazy. And Ryan like surprised me, because it was like I it just was a whole awakening to a world that I just, as the child of immigrants, being from Georgia, you know, that doesn't have hockey, being the child of immigrants, and I say that because, you don't really associate, you know, our group with being professional athletes, just because it's not part of our culture in the same way as American culture. And then, moving to California and being surrounded by actors and artists, I just never was in the mix on that kind of thing, especially hockey, Canadian, it's Midwestern. It's just, it wasn't part of my existence. Although I did go to Boston University. And I remember one time my college roommate asked me, do you want to go to like think it was called Bean Pot, or it's called Bean Pot. I don't remember. It's something, and all the Boston teams play each other in hockey. And she was like, "Do you want to go to?" I'm just gonna say Bean Pot. I don't remember the name, but she's like, "You want to go to the Bean Pot,
I don't even
whatever
know
it
what
is."
you're talking
See,
about.
this is who I really am. Like, this is how much I really care. Um, and I said, "Is it cold in there?" And she goes, "Yeah, it's hockey." And I was like, "No, why would I go? It's freezing outside. Why would I go be cold more? Like, I don't want to do that." So yeah, like I'm not naturally one who goes to like, you know, but now I love it. Now I know a lot about it, but
Yeah,
no.
right. Okay, so here's my question. Did you have like a stereotype about him? Like, were you thinking, oh my gosh, this guy's just gonna want to like get with me? Because I feel like there's obviously such a stereotype for hockey players, right? Like people think they're all like players and just like, and I'm just curious if you had that when someone was like, I want to set you up with a pro hockey player.
I mean, yeah, obviously I was like, okay, let's see how this goes, but at the same time, I'm a woman of the world, and I was kind of like, I don't need to get into anything that I don't want to, I don't know. It wasn't a big deal to me when I met him. I kind of knew he was what kind of person he would probably end up being, but at the same time I was just like, yeah, I mean, yeah, you have
Yeah,
assumptions about hockey, but you have assumptions about any professional athlete you're going to meet as a
totally.
woman. You're like, who is this person? What are they about? And, you
Right.
have to be realistic with your understanding of the world. Like, okay, this is a young, well-known individual with millions of dollars. So, yeah, people are going to throw themselves at that person, and that person is going
Right.
to, have a lot of life experiences, and that's okay. Like, that's part of it. It
Um,
didn't bother me as much, but I think that's because I was in my own professional space. I think like
right.
if I was in a different kind of career, I'd be like a little more intimidated by that. But in a way, I was like, oh, whatever. Like, because
Yeah.
I was surrounded by actors. I was living a very like LA. I was working. I mean, I actually never even. I'm not like a hanger outer. Like I never really go to parties. I don't. I do a lot of stuff by myself at my house, and I worked so much during those years. Now I've slowed down since I've had kids, but at that
Yeah.
time I was working every single day, like maybe 10, 12 hours a day. So it's like I wasn't overly concerned with what he was doing because I didn't care. I mean, I don't know. That's why I encourage people be obsessed with yourself. Do things for yourself. That way other people's things don't bother you as much and they're not as impactful. Like who cares?
Yeah. And I love too that you went into it like, I'm good. I'm content at this point in my life. Like, I'm not looking for anything. And then obviously it like
Yeah.
was to be and worked out that way. As women, we're obviously like so much in this lifestyle, but I'm like, I gotta look up Ryan on Elite Prospects because like as a girl in this lifestyle, I'm like, I don't follow like the hockey players, right? Like I'm here for the girlies. So I'm like, I want to hear
Yeah.
your story and your perspective of how it's been for you in this lifestyle. But I was surprised to see like how many times you guys had actually like moved and been traded. And I was really interested in that in particular, given the career choice that you had prior and then like meeting someone with also a very demanding job. Like, how did that work out for you guys essentially, like in the beginning with seeing each other to eventually like taking those next steps with kind of that unknown chaos of like uncertainty?
I mean the moving is a really hard part of the hockey life. The packing, I don't think it can be overly emphasized how hard that part of life is and the cost at which their success comes, to your personal life and your stability. Yeah, we moved a lot of times. We moved, and we still have like if I pan this camera, there's boxes behind us. We're moving again in January. We just built a house, but and we're moving. We live in Newport Beach now, and
Okay.
we moved here from Manhattan Beach. We built a house in Manhattan Beach, and we lived there through the pandemic. Just we built it. It took us 5 years to build that house, and we lived there for maybe 2 years and sold it, and then moved down here because Ryan decided to retire, and we wanted to have another child, and we just thought it would be better for us lifestyle wise down here. There's just more. Um, and then acting changed, because LA is everything doesn't you don't have to be tethered to LA as an actor.
Oh,
But for a long time, Ryan and I had like a long distance marriage, which I think was very hard on us in a lot of ways. And it was hard on other people to understand that, we were married and we had a real marriage. But I remember being asked that a lot at the time I was working, and a lot of, people were like, well, are you really married? I mean, because you don't live with your husband. I'm like, well, I'm not going to just go sit in, another place, St. Louis, and in a condo, or Vancouver, and just sit there when I could be working in
Mhm.
Los Angeles and my own career. And it's been hard. I definitely think my career, if I had never met Ryan, I probably would have been in a different space with my career. But that's more because I have two children than
Right.
my marriage. But I do think my marriage and the huge successes that Ryan has had, and because of that, the trades that followed those moments. Especially leaving Buffalo, that was a big one. Buffalo is hard to get to, though. It's two flights from LA. There was never a direct flight. So that was really hard. And, you know, we went to St. Louis after that. That was a very short stint for the playoffs. Then he was on a free agency. We moved to Vancouver. That's where I had my son. I was on anger management, pregnant for the last 7 months of my pregnancy. And then 8, I moved to Vancouver, found a doctor, had my son. Day 8, I was back in LA with Bodie, my son, shooting TV show, which was crazy. It didn't
Yeah.
really go well because I think it was really a bad decision on my agent's part and also my part to do that. It was way too soon, and I felt very dysregulated.
Mm.
But I think like the moving it's been crazy. Like it's been very we're still searching for peace, and it's been almost 3 years since he retired. And I'm hoping, God willing, that this when we get into our next house, we could stay there for 10 years. That's my goal. And when I tell
Right.
that to people, they're like, "Duh," but I'm like, "You don't understand. It's not duh for us because we've never had that. We've been married for 13 years, and we've never had,
Right.
a long time in a certain space. I had
Yeah.
my LA house. We did have that house for 11 years, so that was like a sacred place to us. But we sold that in the pandemic. So it's just, we've just been on the move.
Well, it's kind of funny because that ties into like my next question was, which is about feeling grounded. Like I crave stability so much. I'm like, I like to feel like I know what's coming next. And I think a lot of girls in this lifestyle can speak to that. It's like the whole like uncertainty of everything is it's really stressful. And especially if you're like not knowing if you can even like live with your partner and you're also chasing your own career. Is there anything in particular that you did to help yourself feel more grounded when you kind of felt like you didn't really have control over that situation? Because in a perfect world, we would obviously be, staying put in one place with the person that we love. And then when that kind of gets taken or you have to make a choice to be in that situation, it can be difficult.
Yeah, I don't know what I did. I definitely felt very rattled at times, when I was working and I had Bodhi by myself. And that's why I have such a huge age gap between my children, because I told myself, I'm not doing this alone again. I'm not doing it again because I'm trying to do something, for my soul, my body, my spirit is my performing, and, you know, putting myself out there, and it's really hard to do when you're the sole caretaker for your child. And I don't feel comfortable just handing over my children to nannies. Um, and the hours of acting is so long. And then when you don't have, I had no parents around to help me. Ryan's parents weren't around to help me. I just have no family around. I do have family. We both have our parents, and they do comfort, times for stretches, but just the day to day with no family and your spouse being gone and having a career that's as demanding as hockey, being an actor is as demanding in a lot of ways. And so it was hard to explain to people what I was going through, and why I couldn't do certain jobs, and that was a hard time for me too, because personally professionally I was having a very big high in my career, after anger management, but I wasn't able to truly follow through the way I really could have had I not had my little son, and that's he's the biggest joy in my life, and my daughter, who I just had 2 years ago. She's only 2 years old. So my children bring me so much happiness. And so I have, been able to be and find and create happiness for my family and my children. I'm really happy with my family, but I don't think I would have been happy with my career without my family.
Totally.
So, I don't think I would have felt very empty inside had I not. had my family and my children. I know that when you have a big career as a woman, a lot of times you are forced into a decision. So I was lucky that way that it happened the way it happened, and I ended up having my kids. But yeah, I have sacrificed a tremendous amount for my husband's success and for my children, really. And it's not really sacrificing. I just mean I wanted to be there for my kids. I wanted somebody to be there for my kids, me or my husband. If he cannot be there, then I have to be there.
Right. So you guys were lit. So when you moved back to shoot the show, that was 8 days postpartum. And then
It
you
was
guys,
another show. It was another show that didn't go to series. It was a pilot.
oh, got it. Okay. And then
hmm
you
hmm
guys were apart for off and on, or did you guys go back to being
I
in?
would go back and forth. I became like an amazing one-handed. I would literally, and I feel like chivalry is dead in a way because so many people would see me with my child in my hand, undoing, quickly releasing and putting together a stroller at the end of the terminal, when you do it when they want to take it back. And I would put Bodhi on the ground. I would put him on the ground and I would hold him with my leg so he wouldn't fall between the gap. And I feel like no, like even flight attendants, I was like, every time I would land, I would kind of like have little tears because like I would be like, I would be, prepping myself, like building myself, like you can do this, girl, you got this, like. And at
Right.
that time, I was like young, and like now I'm like with my daughter, I'm like I'm an old mother, I'm geriatric, I can't do the stroller. I'm like Ryan, carry her.
Yeah, true.
Um, but like, at that time I was like, I'm on top of the world. And I would like open the stroller, put him down. We would wait through customs. And that was the hardest thing is he was playing Canada. So every time I'd go back and
Gosh.
forth, even if it was for 4 days, it was like such a short flight, but the customs would make it so long. Like it would be like I was flying to 5 hours, but Vancouver to LA is only actually 2.5 hours. But the customs would take 2 hours. And it was right before global entry. I don't think I had we didn't have global entry then. So
Yeah.
I couldn't skip the lines. And of course, we're in Canada. So a lot of people, knew who I was. And that was another like element of that going back and forth because at that time, anger management was like the number one show in Canada.
Mhm.
And then here I am at the airport with Bodhi, and Ryan was everywhere in Canada. I mean, he was like on the side of the arena, a whole like a huge like the entire side of the arena was him.
Yeah.
Um, like one huge Ryan Miller. And I always feel bad I never got a picture with it because the only way you could get in front of it was from the highway. And I mean, there was times I was driving by and I was like, should I just pull over and try to take a picture with it?
Yeah.
But because I've tried to do that in different cities where he's been on billboards, so I tried to take a picture with like his banners and but I didn't. I don't think I have one of that, which makes me really sad. But we lived across the water in Vancouver, and when we walked into our condo, we opened the window and we were like, I was like, who is that? Is that you? And Ryan's dad, they were there and they were like, yeah, that's Ryan. We were all squinting. We're like, oh my God, you can see him from our window. So it's like every morning we'd open our window and you see Ryan
Where's
from
your
all
husband?
the way,
You're
yeah,
like mad
across
at him
the
one day, you're like, close his blinds.
yeah, he was there. So, there was a lot of like attention and like just, there was a lot going on then. And so at those moments, I did feel like I wish I had a safe space. I wish I had like better childcare. I wish I had somebody to help me. I had a lot of like, tearful moments. I would miss big director meetings in LA because I had just arrived in Vancouver and Ryan would have a big game and I didn't have anyone to, they give you like very short notice with acting, like 48 hours. And so
Right.
just, it's been a journey for me, but I'm really happy where I landed. I really am.
Do you feel like Ryan understood like what you were going like I'm sure looking back he can reflect and be like, wow, that was a lot, and probably retiring and being there for the second time around, maybe he saw a lot more of like, kind of the whole postpartum experience. But like, do you feel at that time he was able to kind of like see what you were going through or like see the sacrifices you were making, or do you feel like that was kind of part of like the tension? Because speaking from experience, I think it's very easy, and as a mother, resentment is can be really easy in this lifestyle, like
hmm
naturally. And I've done an episode on it because it's like you do have to give up so much, and it's like we wouldn't change it. Like obviously, like our kids are our life, but sometimes when it feels like hockey's kind of taking the forefront, it's inevitable that that feeling can come up.
hmm I agree with that. Completely. It does come up, because you know, you are giving, and even if you don't have a career, you're giving up a lot,
Mhm.
like for someone else's glory. And it's always that, in relationships, it's I don't there is a push pull, there is a give and take,
Right.
and there's a gardener and there's a rose at different times. But I do think in terms of my personal relationship, Ryan was understanding and he really did get it. And he does get it because he would come to LA for the whole summer and I would be working. And we had the most hilarious dynamic, which I didn't even realize I was doing until some of my friends called me out. I would get home from set and I would be, it'd be like 12 hours. I'd be working. I'm like slamming I remember one time I was like, slam the refrigerator door. I cannot believe you did not get groceries. I'm so hungry. Did you even make anything for dinner? And it was like so the opposite of like a gender, like a gender swap. Like I was like the angry, like house. Oh, he definitely gets, what I've been through. And I mean, not, nobody can ever really be in your skin, but like he gets, what, acting and being an actor is very similar to being a professional athlete. You
Yeah.
really have a lot of highs, you have a lot of lows, you have to be ready to go at all times. And there's a resiliency and like a very like something that you have to find deep inside yourself the ability to wake up after a loss and keep going. And same thing with acting, like you have to be able to be on your feet for 12 hours, shine, smile, remember all these people's names, like
Um,
get it. And that, to me, that was one of the harder transitions for me getting in the hockey world too, was the remembering people.
right.
That was hard. That was
Yeah.
legitimately very hard for me because it's like I,
You meet so many
I,
people.
you meet so many. I had such a huge world that I was living in on my own, and then to add so many wives and so many managers and trainers and GMs and their wives and the president and the this and that, and it was like nonstop. First, it was like one team, then it's another team, then it's so I'm grateful for Instagram where I can keep up with people and
Right.
see how all the families that we've played with are doing, and I care a lot about those people. I think there's a bond between hockey wives that people don't really understand, and there's no one else who really understands what you're going through, and the bond is deep. Like, obviously everyone's not going to be your best friend, but there is like a shared feeling, I think.
Yeah. No,
I think some of the girls are really close. I'm probably not as close with a lot of people, but I do feel like at times when I've really felt close to people, it often is a hockey wife.
yeah, and I would agree with that. I think I was just talking about this with one of my friends here, but like I think that hockey in particular is unique in that way because I think that in other professional sports, like I've heard differently, where it's a little bit more competitive with between the wives and stuff, and I find that people are generally like really supportive and great and like that they understand like we're giving birth away from home, or maybe we wouldn't necessarily choose to do that. And that is a sacrifice. And that's something that a lot of people don't realize or think of what we're doing as we're supporting our husbands. But
Right.
that's funny because I also was going to ask you about that because I think with you living away from him and going to visit, how did you find it was meeting people and friends and then maybe not knowing if you're going to like even stay in that place of like, do I like put my energy into this because we might be leaving, or like how did that look for you? Because there's so many different things that I hear just from my page and my podcast, and I'm just very
Yeah.
curious what your experience has been like.
Well, I definitely feel like I've come in hot, in scenarios and in rooms with totally not intentionally, but you always realize things in retrospect. Like probably coming too hot in a lot of situations. Like I'm definitely like a high first kind of girl. Like I'm like, hey, how are you? Like that is just kind of who I am at my core without, I mean, I fight against it, but I am a girl who I like to smile when I see people. I like to say hi. I like to treat people nice. And, there are a lot of dynamics going on in the room. And a lot of times, and this is something I only learned later, a lot of it has to do with our husbands. And, Ryan kind of being Ryan, um, and then coming in, as his wife, as his fiance, as an actor, I think it was probably, but this is the thing, it's I've been naive for a lot of my life. I feel like I have walked through situations so naive, and then as I've gotten older, I think about things I've done 10 years ago or 5 years ago even or even longer, maybe 15 years ago when I was just Ryan's girlfriend, and I think, wow, God, I wonder how they interpreted that, or I wonder how, because I really like am a naive person in a lot of ways. Like I am a kind of happy-go-lucky, like a hey, like sure, go with the flow, whatever, like kind of person. And so I think in that way I was able to like let go of a lot of things that maybe other people would have harbored and kept on to, because I do think I did have a little bit of backlash against me in every room that I went to. But
Why do you
um
say that? Like
well, not backlash, I guess that's a harsh word, but like a little bit of like I don't know.
you
Um,
felt like misunderstood or like
yeah, I probably was misunderstood a little bit. Thank you.
okay.
Yeah, I don't know how to even put it. It's more like I think the way certain things kind of ended up going, probably people thought, oh, I don't know. It's hard for me to know what other people, I think I'm such a weird person for me to try to think about what other people are thinking about.
Right.
It won't be the right thing.
Right.
But I don't know. I just feel like, oh, I could have maybe eased into probably every wives room that I've ever been into better. But I can't help it. I just want to be happy. I want to have a good time. I want to be nice.
Yeah.
And I think there's not everybody's like that. Not everybody is going to go hi.
Totally. Hmm.
Everybody is not going to smile and say hi. And that's actually been one of the things of my, as basic as it sounds, is my part of my evolution as a person is not taking that personally, accepting that people are all going through their own thing. And I oftentimes, am going through a lot too, and probably don't realize when I'm doing that, the opposite end. But I do smile and I do say hi, and I do think that's a maturity. I think that's a sign of maturity that I have.
It's funny
Yeah,
how your brain goes to that though, because like even me being in Europe, like it's just their culture to like not like, for example, I'm from, and I don't know if you know where Encinitas is. That's where I grew up in San
yeah.
Diego. And
Hmm.
everybody is
So
so
pretty.
like, hey, how's it going? Like, hope you're having a good Saturday. Like strangers down the street, like I'm like, that's how I grew up and then moved to Boise and like everybody's super friendly there too. And so when we moved to Europe for the first time, it was like very culture shock-ish for me and in a different perspective besides like the hockey girls, but like just day to day, people would like not smile and not make that small talk. And it's a little different in England, but I would totally take it personally and it would make me put like this guard up and think, "Oh my God, did I do this or that?" And I would like overthink it. So it's funny how our brains go to like this is personal, but I love how you just like worded that everybody's going through something and you don't always know what
Yeah.
that might be?
I mean, the art of small talk is lost on people.
I
I
love a good
think
small talk.
a small, we can chit chat all day, girl. I'll
Yeah,
chit chat. I mean, we can walk away. We haven't learned anything about each other, but we will chit chat.
right.
But that's just, that's to me, that's part of life, is
Yeah.
you make friends out of people, you rally around people, you are, I don't know, I've been through this a lot with different friend groups, it is hard to take certain people. I think sometimes it is hard to take me, maybe as a person. That's how I interpret a lot of my interactions have been, maybe because of, I don't know, maybe Ryan and, his successes, and then me having my own career. And, I think it's a lot.
Do
I
you
think it's a
feel
lot.
like,
That's what I think for other people. I think it's probably that's my kind way of maybe that's what I
yeah,
think.
okay, that's so
Hmm.
interesting because I actually
Hmm.
appreciate that in people. Like when someone is doing something like that, like I like that because I think there needs to be that, like especially it's a community to go. Maybe you're like a long distance girlfriend and you're coming to visit and it's
Yeah.
nice. People are welcoming and kind. And I do these Sunday check-ins on my page and so many people submit like I, I'm left out with the girls and like it's more than people would think. And I'm just like, I hate this, like
Hmm.
'cause
Hmm.
there's no need for it, but I think it can happen kind of like when you have a big group of girls, like it's kind of natural sometimes for people to form like cliques and stuff, but it can be hard moving every single year and like having to meet a whole new group of
Right.
people, put yourself out there again. This is who I am. This is my life and whatever. And sometimes,
Yeah.
sure, you might make a best friend, and sometimes you might not really connect with anyone. And so I don't know, it's just such an interesting.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, I think like that's the other thing about, me being a hockey wife. 'Cause I was always there, but I was never there. Like I was there for big moments and I was there for a lot, but a lot of times when I get there, I'd be really tired, and I had my
Yeah.
son, and I need to stay home. Like I can't do every single thing, you know. I could be there, but I can't, you know, I just and like I was mentally, physically, emotionally a lot of times just exhausted and I had to be there also emotionally for Ryan and also not just for him, for me being, you know, I want him to win, you know?
Right.
And just yeah, it's just exhausting. The whole thing. I just found the whole thing to be exhausting beyond, but at the same time, I found the energy for it.
Right.
I have a lot of energy, so I found the energy for it. But I also would have, you know, a lot of moments of reclusivity, and I just needed to kind of be alone. And I don't know. That's why I'm saying I don't know how people interpreted me as a hockey wife, but I know that I gave, you know, 100% of who I was when I was there. I just
Yeah.
couldn't be there all the time. But, you know, I found myself I was able to be there on the Ducks a lot because the Ducks is where we live now. It's Newport Beach, it's
Yes.
Anaheim.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And so that was close to home for me, and that was allowing me to a little bit maintain my career while Ryan was working. So I was on actually on Good Girls for 2 years when Ryan was playing. So that was actually one of the first times in our career where we both were able to work and live together. And that was really cool because I'd never experienced that before.
Yeah. And did that feel different than being apart? Like, was it a different dynamic or did you kind of find your groove pretty easily?
I know felt great. Like, you know, the summers, we've been together for a long time
Yeah,
and you know,
that's
we've been together for a lot of stretches.
off
But
season.
like, yeah, no, it felt wonderful. It was wonderful.
Well, I did want to move into retirement,
Yeah,
uh,
sure.
because that obviously is a transition and it's something that I need to talk about more and I forget to talk about it because we're not yet in that season, but I think it's really important for girls to speak on this as a lot of people get into retirement year after year. It's something that's going to come up soon for us. But what was that an adjustment for you guys when he retired? Because I think, you know, a lot of these guys have been playing hockey since they were like little boys, right? And they've been playing it their whole
Hmm.
life. It basically
Hmm.
becomes their identity. And then so for them to then retire, it can be a big transition, not only for him, but also you guys as a family, because then you have to
Hmm.
switch to kind of a different whole dynamic.
So I had been, you know, begging Ryan for like 3 years before he retired to retire, and he wanted to hit certain milestones before he retired. And it's hard because like the reason why I wanted him to retire, and you know, people dream of being a professional athlete, and people dream of this lifestyle, and they want this so bad, and I get it because there are perks and there is, you know, when you hit those highs, when you accomplish things, when you win those games, and you know that adrenaline, it's unmatched. There maybe never will be that experience again for you as a human being, and people just don't understand that high. It's so like thick. It's like you could hold it in your hand, you could like eat it. It's like that feeling, like I can't explain it. It's just that win, that deep satisfying I'm alive for a reason, you know? And I have that a lot when I'm, you know, if I'm like, I mostly do comedy, but if I get like a huge big laugh, it's like there's nothing that fills me up the way that that laugh does. And so I get it. It's an addiction. It's and if you can do it and you're one of the very few who can do it, you know, be an athlete, be a paid athlete. Like I get it. Like my son is 9 and he is obsessed with sports, and just seeing the kind of dedication it takes, the effort it takes to tie a hockey skate, for God's sake. It's like I can't even get over that. I'm like, this is too hard. I don't want to do this. Like, are you kidding me? I have to tie these skates, but like doing that for like that's nothing, right? That's like scratching the surface. Like that's like
Right.
the nothing of the nothing on top of the career. But I'm
Yes.
just saying, like that to me is like the like it's just it's so much work, right? And he can do it. And he wants, but like I just was like ready to have another child. I wanted to have stability. I was craving that stability. I wanted my home where we would feel comfortable. And of course, we were in LA for many years. We lived in the Hollywood Hills. And, you know, the TMZ tour would go by our house and they would like go. They would stop for our house and they'd go, and the actress from Anger Management, Noureen DeWulf, is here and she's with her boyfriend, her fiance, maybe even. His name is Ryan Moore. He's from the Buffalo Sabres. And Ryan, you know, being from Michigan, having played his whole career up until then in Buffalo, was not used to this like LA kind of craziness, right? And he was like, I want to get the F out of here. Like, this is crazy. Like,
Wants more
how are we
privacy.
going to, yeah, you want more privacy. So we go to Manhattan Beach, we build this house, like this beautiful home. And Kendrick Lamar is our neighbor. Okay. Kendrick Lamar buys a house next door to us when we are just finishing our house after a 5 year build. And one day, all the construction workers next door were like blasting, Ken's music. And we were like, "What's going on?" And they were like, "Oh, you haven't heard Hefe?" to Ryan. And he was like, What do you mean?" And he was like, "Oh, Kendrick Lamar by your house. He's your new neighbor." So I was like, "This is crazy." We went from having a TMZ tour to like now Ken, I call him Ken, but Kendrick Lamar is our neighbor, and it was just crazy. So we like, we had a neighborly relationship with him for a long time, but it was just we were like everything was just always so everything we would find ourselves in, we would look and seek for stability and it would get ratcheted up, 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 like everything would get crazier and crazier. Like we thought, okay, he's had his highs in Buffalo, the Olympics. Like Ryan got traded on my birthday. He actually had the gold medal game for the Olympics on my birthday. The USA Canada game was on my birthday, and then he got traded to St. Louis on my birthday, and it's something else happened on my birthday too. But that's February 28th is my birthday, so on that
You're like
day, it's usually like
triggered every birthday. You're like, oh my God, what's going
no,
on?
yeah, I've had people text me in my life, be like, "What's going to happen on this year on your birthday for Ryan?" But yeah, so like it just been it was funny because the beginning of our relationship was he was in the Olympics and we had just started dating. We had just like we had met the year prior, but we didn't have time for each other. I was shooting a movie. Like we kept in touch, but we weren't really in a relationship until maybe December or January of the year of the Olympics, 2010. And I remember my parents had come to town for my birthday to say, it was my sisters, and Ryan and I were in People magazine. It said Ryan Miller, Olympic stars dating an actress, Noureen DeWulf, and they had pulled pictures of us and they put it in People magazine. I had not told my parents about my relationship with Ryan. And my sisters were like, either you tell them or People magazine's going to tell
Or they're
them.
gonna see at the airport.
Yeah, they're going to see at the airport. And so I was like, listen, I'm dating this guy, and um, we just started dating, but he's playing in a gold medal game tomorrow. I didn't have tickets. So I texted, and they were like, you should go. So I texted Ryan's dad, and I said, listen, I want to surprise Ryan. I don't want to throw him off. He doesn't expect me to be there. So I want to go to this game. How can I, is there a ticket for me? Can you find me a ticket? And he was like, yeah, we'll get you a ticket. We'll find a way. So I landed, and his cousin met me. We walked like 2 miles because it was Olympic craziness, right? Like every road was blocked off. And like for some weird reason, I wore a dress. I don't know why
Oh my
I
God.
wore a dress. It's one
I
of
love
the biggest regrets of my life.
it. You're like, first time, guys, it's fine.
It was insane what I wore. I didn't just wear a dress, I wore a houndstooth dress.
You
Okay.
were what?
A houndstooth print dress
Oh my gosh.
with gray knee-high boots and huge earrings. And I don't know what compelled me to wear this outfit. Let me tell you, I was not in my right state of mind,
Do
okay?
we have
My
photos? Can we get the photos for this?
I don't think I did because I took it off immediately after. As soon as I could take that thing off and throw it in the hotel, I put on like jeans and his jersey. So basically, yeah, so I got to the game. We walked through these crowds. I was like all sweaty and mangled when I arrived because I'd walked through all the Olympic crowds. I was like the last flight in. Like it was insane what was going on in the Vancouver Olympics. It was so amazing, but also, just craziness. Finally get there. They put the families in basically in the nosebleeds. We couldn't see anything. Like all the parents, all the wives, girlfriends, we couldn't see the game. Like we barely could see. Um, so we're way up in the back, and I like again. This is right when I first started dating him. I didn't know anything about hockey. And I was like, "What's happening?" Like it was like the worst experience because, of course, they ended up losing in overtime. So
Oh,
after the game, I like waited a little while, and sorry, and I text him. I said, "Hey, I'm here. I'm here." And He was like, really appreciate that. And I was like, no, no, not in spirit. I mean, I'm physically here. I'm in the arena.
Oh my gosh, wait, he didn't even know you were coming like until
No,
after the
he, yeah, I didn't want
to,
to,
like, yeah,
yeah,
I
I
get
had gone to the first USA Canada game and then I flew back because I was testing for a couple shows. So, and at the morning after
Oh my
the
God.
Olympics, I stayed awake all night. We went to all these different parties, whatever. I flew out on a maybe 6 a.m. flight and I was testing for outsourced an NBC pilot. I tested for that at maybe 9:30 a.m. and I didn't get it. But then they ended up, well, let me rephrase. I didn't get the part that I wanted. They were interested in me for another part, which I didn't want to play. And then I ended up recurring on the show later as another part. So it was nice that I met the people, but it wasn't what I wanted to do. But it was so that's what I mean when I say like and there's moments that I was just so exhausted by the whole experience. But I do wish like in a way like I wish it was more like Instagram and all that kind of stuff then, because I think there were so many amazing things that we've been through that would have been so cool to look back on just for myself. But we didn't have that feeling of like we need to tape things, we need to like share things. But yeah, so like it just feels like, just starting with that beginning, like the People Mag, and we were shocked by that. Like neither of us knew that was going to happen. We were blown away. We were both like, what? Like we didn't even, we had not told anyone about our relationship. Like
Oh,
we
wow.
were just blown away. And then Ryan Seacrest kind of was talking about it. I guess when people, then Ryan Seacrest was talking about it, and that's when his morning show was really big, and Ryan's Roses, everything like that, before like Sirius. So I guess I'm aging myself because I keep saying like, well, before that, before this big,
No,
before
I
this
get it
big
though. I
transition
get
took
it.
place.
Yeah.
Um, but
This day and age, like something would be on Instagram like within 2 seconds, whereas like,
Yeah, yeah, that's what I mean. It's like
right,
it was never, you didn't have as much control over your own narrative the way you do now. Like you're like, I want to put out this, don't want to put out that. And back then
right.
it was just like, holy shit, we are outed. People know, like, like that's a big deal. It was fine, but
Right.
it was just weird. It was unexpected during that time. And anyway, so it's like it's just been ratcheted up, keeps going, going, going. And then Ryan hit these huge highs at the end of his career, and then he retired and we thought there was going to be a lull. Well, it was like he got into the Hall of Fame and, his jersey was retired in Buffalo. And so we've had these big events and now we're going to go his jersey, he's going to get in the Hall of Fame for the Rochester Americans. So like, because I think of who he is as a person and a player, his career, and he works for the San Diego Sharks now. So like his career is going to keep going, and I hope it does because he's truly a wonderful human being, and a great, great, great hockey player, and just an overall deserving, kind person who cares about others. But so yeah, so like it hasn't really stopped. It's still like okay, he just told me yesterday I'm going to San Jose on Friday, and
Right.
I'll be back Saturday. So, there is still that, like, we're still deep in the lifestyle. We're still
Yeah.
going to games. Some of my friends are still on the Ducks, some of the wives. They're younger than me, but, I'm friendly with them. And it just, it's like a whole life. It's not just the beginning and the end. It just keeps going. Like, if you're in it,
You'll always be a part of it.
you'll always be in it. Your child will play, or does it, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And my son is on the junior Ducks now, and I think that's pretty cool to see him wearing the same
Oh,
jersey that his dad wore. I think that's really cool.
I love that.
It's really cool. And my daughter is all like wants to. She's only 2, and she's like, "I want to play hockey, Daddy. I want to be a hockey team." And we're like, "Oh God, no!"
Yeah.
Like, oh my, I don't want you to be a hockey player. But that's what that's what she's seeing her brother do, and she's seeing her daddy do, and it's cool. I like it. I hope that I can continue, to continue working a little bit in my career so that I can, or a lot if the right thing comes around. So that she can see me do things too. But
Yeah.
it just never ends. It's a whole journey.
Yeah. Was retirement hard for you in any capacity, or were you like, "Man, this is amazing"?
No, it
Like,
was really hard. It was hard.
okay, tell me about that a little bit.
Yeah, it was hard because like the first year before Ryan picked up any other jobs, um, I had just had Kaya, my daughter. I'd just given birth, and he was retired, and we just stared at each other all day. because I didn't feel good enough. I didn't feel good enough to work. I was sick. Like I got sick from my pregnancy and
Mhm.
I didn't feel good. So it's like I wasn't trying to do anything. I couldn't really. I did not have the energy and I didn't have my health. And he was retired. And we had sold our house that we had built for 5 years, like this beautiful home where we finally thought we were going to spend our days. We sold it and we moved to a rental. Okay. We are in this small rental, kind of just staring at each other every day. Like, what's our life about? Like,
Mhm.
we didn't know where we were going to go. We just knew that what we had wasn't it for us. It wasn't we couldn't see ourselves living out our days there.
Yeah.
It just wasn't the place. And sometimes it's like finding your romantic partner.
Yeah.
Somebody can be amazing, but they're just not for you.
Mhm.
And I just didn't want to be there. I don't know what it was. I just didn't want to be there. And then we lived in that rental for a while. This is all post retirement. This is the last year and a half, 2 years. And then we moved to Newport. And now we're in another rental. And then we bought a property. We bought a lot. We're building a house. So we're going to be I'm counting the days because I think in 90 days, I'm going to have that stability that I've been craving for 20 years.
You just
I have
get
no
20 years,
furniture.
like
I
literally.
have no, I have no furniture. But the thing is that what was cool about this project is so Ryan and I found ourselves staring at each other a lot, right? And we both realized that let's do a project, let's build another house. But let's this time we have no designer. We do it ourselves. Because we're both like highly motivated people, but we just weren't ready to be obligated to others. Like I wasn't feeling good, and he's just after his whole career, so many things he had to go through emotionally, the turmoil. It's
Yeah.
just such a big abrupt in a way stop
100%.
when everybody else leaves to go to season and you're at home, you're
And
staring
you're
at your
seeing
wife.
it all now because of Instagram. Like it's not just like you're seeing everybody leaving for the season. You're
Yeah,
watching it on TV and you're
right.
probably feeling like, did I make the right choice? Like, like
Yes,
that
exactly.
whole,
Exactly.
yeah,
Yeah, you're like, wait a sec, it's over, you know?
right.
And I'm not going to play again. And it's like, wow, I'm not going to be a player's wife. I'm not going to be walking in the family room. And, and it is an abrupt ending. And there is a sadness there because you're mourning the end of something huge, massive, no matter what level you played on. You play 2 games, you play 19 years. You are, it's an ending. And it's not like acting. Acting ebbs and flows. You can go back to your acting career, at any moment if the right job comes along, but hockey, it's over. It's finite. It's done when it's done, unless you find a way to continue on in a different kind of way, but not as a player, right? So we just like found ourselves just staring at each other. So we were like, God, this is really weird. Really too much time.
Well, what's funny too
And
is when you meet your partner, they are already like they're a hockey player. Like that's their identity. And so then you find your role within this. Obviously, we all have lives outside of that. I think that's a big misconception that we're just like
right.
like chasing after them. Not true, to clear that up for anyone that thinks that. But like that's ever since you've known Ryan, he was a professional hockey player. So then you guys are stepping into this new dynamic where like that's not who he is. Obviously will always be part of who he is, but like that's not who he is anymore. Then you're not like a hockey wife anymore. So it's like you have to construct basically what life looks like for you because like he's not going on the road for however many days and then coming back and playing games. Like you're with each other a lot more. Roles can change within the household. Like there's just so much change that happens that I hear that people like really struggle with that. And I don't think it's one of those things like you don't really know till you know.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's like we're eating lunch together now.
Yeah,
Lunch?
right.
Like, okay, I'm responsible for lunch.
Yeah.
It's just it's it's just hilarious. It's like, yeah, you're staring at each other,
Yeah. How
identity,
did you
your
support him through that shift too? Like, in what way
yeah,
do you
yeah.
feel like he best supported him through that change? Because, like you said, it's like emotionally probably really hard for a lot of these guys. Like, unless you're going into something that like you guys want to do, like you go immediately into coaching something that
Mhm.
keeps you as part of the sport, like right off the bat, but obviously it's still, a shift.
It's hard because, when you lose part of your identity or that a part of your identity has to come to a close, it is still your identity, but it's not the physical, you're not manifesting it physically on a day-to-day basis. That's a personal thing. So there's not really much as a wife you can do in a lot of the situations. You can't go inside someone's brain and build up their identity for them, right? Like it's kind of like I don't know, it's a journey, right? Like it's your own personal, you can be there, you can be supportive, you can, you know, I don't know, it's such a personal thing. I think like for me, it was just, we had our daughter, we took on a project. That was basically
Right.
me
Kept yourself
being
busy.
support. That was me being supportive, was encouraging him to, despite what we had been through with our last bill, just took a long time because we were by the ocean, coastal commission, blah blah blah, and like building this dream house, and then I decided that I didn't want to live in this house. Okay, this is what was crazy. It was like I just added another huge thing to the mix. I was like, also I want to move, and it was like, what? I was like, yeah, I don't want to live here anymore. So it's like I felt like in a way though it was a gift because when we moved basically out of LA, because Manhattan Beach is part of LA, but when we moved out of LA because Ryan didn't want to be in the Hollywood Hills in LA. Then we moved to Manhattan Beach, and then all of a sudden I didn't want to be in Manhattan Beach. I actually never really wanted to be in Manhattan Beach, but it was just kind of how it manifested itself because Ryan really wanted me to be able to be close to work, but then work changed after COVID. It was crazy. Now we're in Newport Beach, and we were like looking at ourselves like, what's our life about, right? So I thought, the way I can be supportive of him is encouraging him to do something. He's very, very I don't know how to describe him besides to say Ryan has a deep grind, an absolute stick to itiveness. You know what I mean? Like you want to get something done, you ask Ryan Miller. Like it's gonna get done. Like
Right.
he's that
He
person.
works
Like
hard.
so
Yeah.
he works hard. He's a hard worker. So it's like I was like, he needs a project. And his mom was like, he needs a project. I was like, yeah, he needs a project. He needs a project yesterday.
Yes.
So we saw this lot and we had, tear down a house. But I was like, what do you think about if we did this, but we did this together? We did it as a project. And you're the designer with me, but I'm making the aesthetic choices. But then he would have to do like the measuring and the this and that. And I would get my creative, junk out. Like I would get to, scratch that deep itch that I have creatively, because I'm a creative person and I am very aesthetically oriented and I love that kind of stuff. So
Right.
I get to do that. And that is like fulfilling me. And then you will take on the project as a whole as a big project, like as a thing to get done, like, all the technical things. And obviously, it's just a huge project. And he was like, okay, yeah, we can take this on. And that was me basically being supportive of this transitional time. Now we're both like ready to be done and just done with it because it's obviously not our main thing, but it was a
Right.
really wonderful thing to take us through the last 2 years, was building the house that we're about to live in. And it also is like the light at the end of the tunnel. It's like truly took us 3 years to kind of wrap our minds around being retired because he played for so long.
Mm-hmm.
And he just got a job with the San Jose Sharks. He just got extended by 2 years, and he's gonna like, travel back and forth and do that for them. And then he's been, working obviously with the Buffalo Sabres, and he's keeping his charity going there, the Steadfast Foundation, which we're involved in. We have a big event every year and raises money for childhood cancer. So there is a lot still going on, but
Right.
it just wasn't the playing,
Right.
so
Yeah.
I think that's how I was supportive, was allowing him to dive back into something else
Yeah.
as a transitional thing.
Yeah. For
Do you
sure.
know what I mean? And
Yeah.
also encouraging
Totally.
him to go back to work despite it mean he's traveling again,
Hmm.
because I know that that's a thing that's going to keep. I don't want to sound like I'm an old grandma, but like I think men have to work to be happy.
I agree.
I
I
really
agree with that.
do. I really do think that's part of like our ingrained
Men are
societal.
providers. They like to provide. And so when they feel like that, they don't know maybe who they are outside of
Right,
hockey, like there's a sense of like exactly that, like who am I and how can I be the provider of my family? So I totally agree
right.
with that. I think something that I've never even like really thought about or asked is like, how were you supported during this time? Because not only is your partner going through like this major shift, but like that can cause a lot of like disconnect. And it's funny because like obviously my husband's not retired, but like I can already anticipate that's going to happen because they go through this huge shift where, like you said, there's nothing you can really do to bring them out of it. It's like kind of a journey that they have to go through and eventually like, find their purpose again and find that fulfillment that hockey once brought. But like I can totally see how that could cause a major like, if they're not feeling happy or fulfilled or finding that purpose, it would cause a disconnect. And anyways, I'm just
Yes,
kind of giving you a subconscious stream of my thoughts,
I
but
like it. Hmm.
I love that you were able to be like, okay, what can we do together to like connect us and make us feel like, because like you said, you liked that part of it where that gave you purpose. And then the bigger project gave him purpose. And it was something that you two could do together to kind of bridge that maybe, or like help bring that closeness back when maybe
Yeah,
we felt
yeah,
a little bit separate.
for sure. Yeah, I think that's always how it has to be in marriage in a way. It's like you have to find those things that that make you happy. Projects, feelings, like those things that give you those feelings, those good feelings, whether it's going to your kids' sports or like, you know, um, having them help you do certain things, or I don't know, every single person has their own way, but yeah, for us it was that project, and I don't know if I think women are stronger than men too. I think we're so much stronger. We're so much more, able to be uplifting in a way without jealousy, without care for ourselves. We're selfless beings, and that that we're more resilient, we're stronger. I just think, it was more about providing that for, and in doing that, it was a sad time. Like there is a lot of like healing you have to do for yourself too, because it is a big chapter that's over.
Right.
And that chapter is, maybe it's an egotistical chapter because you're like, oh, the status of that and the this and the that is over. But there's such a happiness and a peace that comes knowing that very tumultuous, low key, even if you don't acknowledge it, deep down anxiety period is
Yes.
done. And so I think sometimes when the body is reacclimating after a long period of stress and anxiety, you interpret that as depression, but really it's just a reset. It's not really that it's a depression. It could just be that it's a reset back to normal after so much dysregulation and after so much up and down and, the anxiety.
The fight or flight. Like I feel like you are always in fight or flight with hockey. Like
Yes.
how I feel. I know so many people that feel that way. Like, how do you not feel that way when you're out of control like that all the time? Like it's just a thing.
And you
So
never know where you're going to be, what you're going to be asked to do.
right.
It's just nonstop. It's like your body, God, your body's so amazing. It just absorbs so much shit, and then it's done one day, and you're like, I don't feel the same because I don't have that adrenaline rush. Well, no, you don't. You're gonna find another way to fulfill that side of yourself, and you got to find a new way. And
Yeah.
what's cool about that is like not a lot of people get to do that. They
Hmm.
don't get to experience that high and then build upon that to find another, like, because your existence is high, it's big, when you're doing
Right.
all these travelings and all these big experiences, and then so you're at one level, and then you go on top of that, and then you go, okay, now on top of that I've built, I'm going to build peace, so you have all that underneath.
Yeah. I'm excited for you that you can find,
Thank you.
start building that home and like creating that
Yeah,
stability where you guys
yeah,
can be, you know?
yes, exactly.
Yeah. So I want to end on one final question. And this is just kind of a
Okay.
funny question, but like, what would you say is the biggest misconception that people think about hockey wives?
Oh, you know what the biggest one for me is? Thank you for saying that we get to travel with our husbands.
There you go.
Everyone has, oh, I know it's not the funny answer, but like everybody is always like, wait a second, you don't get to, because baseball, they travel, and yeah, the baseball wives travel with their husbands.
What? For like away games?
Yes. Yeah.
But why?
You're allowed to. You can take your whole family. You can take your dog, you can take everybody.
Like, do you not want to sit on the couch and like watch Real Housewives while your husband's gone? Like,
I don't know, they just get to. So it was kind of like, We
Okay.
lived across the street from the baseball player for a long time, and he was always shocked. And his wife was shocked in Manhattan Beach, and they were both like, I cannot believe Ryan goes on 10-day road trips and you guys have to stay here. I was like, what plane are we flying on? Like, where? How?
Yeah.
Like, they don't even want to see the wives on the road. They said we're a distraction. Like, at times when I've been shooting in other places and I wanted to meet Ryan at the game,
Yeah.
he's like, well, it's a really big game and I don't want them to think I'm distracted by you. So, can you stay at a different hotel? This is like when we were engaged and married. So, like,
Which is so offensive, by the way.
it's so, and yeah, and they would, like, the GMs would be like, we don't want to see anybody's, not GMs, we say, the manager, whoever, the coaches,
Right.
everybody would get pissed if they saw the girlfriends and wives at the hotel. They thought
Totally.
it would give them weak legs, or what's that? What are those old, like, ridiculous stereotypes? Like, you can't play as good. Like,
Yes.
um,
Like a distraction. Like it's like,
yeah,
I'm sorry, this is like the father of my children. Like I don't think, I mean, yes, it's distracting to have your kids there, but like a good distraction. Like that's good
yeah.
to have that.
I remember one year I really wanted to go to Madison Square Garden because Ryan was going to play, and they said that they don't want to see any wives or girlfriends in New York. And that was a hard one for me because I was like, that really breaks my heart because I really want to experience this and watch him. And they just see us as such a distraction and stuff. So maybe that's a misconception too about the wives, is that we're allowed to do and say and go wherever we want. But the truth is that it's very, like, controlled in a lot of ways. Like, I don't think I've ever been called a distraction more in my life. Like, don't distract him. Don't distract him. Like, you know what I mean? Like, don't do anything on a game day. Like, do not pick a fight. Like, do your call, get off the phone,
Yeah.
or you know what I mean? Like, keep it quiet, keep it low key, don't bring anything up. Like, it's like you're a robot in a lot of ways. You're like, okay, I can't.
Well, I can imagine as a goalie as well, like in his role on the team, like I could see that happening a lot more for that specific like
hmm
position as well, because there's so much
Yeah,
pressure for goalies.
that's true. There, it is a ton of pressure. Yeah, and I think there was a lot of pressure on him in certain teams. It was just like it was either going to be he has a great game or there's no game. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it was like, I don't know. It changed as we went on, as we became more and more and more established. It was like, I can't consistently be a distraction. I'm just living my life.
Exactly.
Like, I can't be a distraction. I just want to be living my life. Like, I can't worry about that all the time. So,
And it just kind of discredits like everything that you sacrifice and give up and
oh,
or
yeah, it was painful. A lot of those kind of experiences really do kind of make you feel low about yourself. You're like, what the fuck? Like, what if I just want to be in New York? And what if, like, so random people get to enjoy watching you play at Madison Square Garden, but I don't get to?
right, which the
And
person
people have
who
asked me that.
most. Yeah.
Yeah, they're like, did you ever see him play at MSG or this? And I'm like, no, because I don't try. We weren't, it
Right.
was not encouraged for us to show up at different places and arenas. And
Yeah.
people know, the other thing is I couldn't be incognito because people would know who I was. And it's like, so it was also like, oh, she's here. She's creating a distraction. It was like, but I don't know.
Um,
The distraction thing is like crazy
mhm.
to me too. It's like,
Yeah.
it's just like, it's not that big of a deal. But it
Yeah.
was like, you want to control every variable you can.
Right.
Not
Exactly.
you, the team.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, I've heard that and like have experienced that in certain ways too. Like, no, I could go on a whole tangent, but yeah, like when I was pregnant coming over to Austria, they were like, "Oh yeah, like with during COVID because I was pregnant in 2020 for the first time." And they were like, "Yeah, like you can come, but your wife can't." My husband's
Hmm
like, "Pardon?" Like she's pregnant. She's like 7 months pregnant. Like she's not
Yeah.
like what are you doing? Like, well,
That's what I mean. That's the
like
craziness of hockey.
yeah, like
Where
well,
you're like,
these men are able to do this while we're like doing XYZ, like you're watching your son and traveling 8 days postpartum
hmm
with him, and he was
hmm
able to do what he does because you did that, So it's
Oh yeah,
not
I slept in a separate bedroom for the first couple of months. When I went back after the show got canceled, I went back to Vancouver, and that's when I decided I'm going to stay. I'm going to stay in Vancouver for 2 years, and that's when I kind of stopped working a little bit when my son was young, is because I really want to experience those years with him. And I didn't have it in my body again to go back and forth until he was like 1.5. Then I started traveling more, but yeah, it was like I just the day after I gave birth to Bodhi, Ryan was there, and then he was gone. He was gone, and I was like, "Where's Ryan? Where is he?" I was in the hospital, and well, he went to practice. And I was like, oh my God.
Right. It
Like,
makes you
are
bitter
you,
AF.
I was pissed. I was in bed watching pit bulls and parolees with my tiny little baby. It was the only channel that worked, and they don't like take your baby away anymore. It's not like a thing where like everyone's like, how come the nursery didn't help? I'm like, what nursery? Neither of my births did anyone help me in the hospital take my child. But anyway, so I had him, and he was all bundled up and he's sitting with me, and the only channel we're just zoned out watching pit bulls and parolees.
Right. Which is not a good start to your postpartum because like it
It's
immediately
really not.
and it's supposed to be about you. And that's the part that's so I'm like, oh, don't get me going, girl. I freaking go. But like even when I my second actually, how when's your daughter's birthday?
April 4th,
Of 2021 or 20
22.
okay. So my
She's
daughter,
only two.
yeah, my daughter's turning 2 December 2nd. So we're
Oh.
but I had her in France and my husband played in a game that night that I had him. And then 3 days later, he had an away game that was like 7 hours away or something, had a C-section, lived on the third floor of a building without a 2-year-old and two golden doodles. And they were trying to get him to go to the game. They're like, oh, well, the owner will fly you out on his private jet. I'm like, I don't think you guys understand. Like, I literally can't walk down the stairs to like take my dogs to the bathroom. Like, oh, we'll
Mhm.
send the guy from the team who doesn't speak English to come help you. I'm like, no, like it's just it's so like we normalize all this stuff like oh he had to go to practice or he had to go to a game. It's like that is not normal. But in our head it's like so normal because we hear it all the time.
Mhm.
Like
Well, you're used to taking that secondary position to
yes,
everything. I'm still mad about that.
me too. That's okay.
Well, let's be. I don't think I'll get over it because I was like, what?
Yeah.
Where?
Still bringing
When's he
up
gonna
like
be
in an
back?
argument, but
Oh,
you
in 2015 when you left me.
well, we could probably go on and on and on.
I know.
Well,
Thank
thank you
you.
so much for coming on the podcast. That was really fun to get to know you and just hear more about your life. And if people want to find you, where can they look for you or follow what you're doing, what you're up to?
I'm on Instagram at Noreen, and I'm actually just started TikTok
Ooh,
because I like to watch, the collective. But it's all like makeup tutorials, and I'm just feeling so old. I really don't have any followers, and I just started it, and I'm trying to do more of that because I think it's really fun.
it's fun.
It feels less permanent in a way than Instagram. It feels like just like a fun, but I haven't gotten the hang of it yet for sure because I only have like a couple hundred views. So come see me there and say hi, and I need you.
I'll follow you.
And yeah, but I'm on Instagram and I try to respond to messages and comments and stuff.